The universe operates on principles we understand: biology, chemistry, the fundamental laws of evolution and adaptation. But what happens when something arrives that evolved in conditions so alien, so utterly hostile to conventional life, that it rewrites every assumption about what living tissue can do? When the crew of Deep Space Nine brought aboard a frozen sample from the Oort cloud, they believed they were examining geological specimens from the early solar system. They had no idea they were waking something that had been patient for longer than human civilization had existed. The station hung at the edge of the Bajran system like a mechanical flower, its docking pylons extended toward the wormhole that shimmered in the distance. Inside, nearly 2,000 souls, Federation, Bajran, civilian, Starfleet, went about their daily routines with the practiced efficiency of people who had learned to live on the frontier between explored space and the great unknown. In Cargo Bay 4, Lieutenant Commander Jadzia Dax supervised the offloading of survey materials from the science vessel Yosemite, which had just completed a 3-month survey mission mapping prestellar objects in the outer reaches of the Bajran system. Careful with Container 17, Dax called out to the Bajran cargo specialist, Keela Varis, who was guiding an anti-grav pallet across the bay. "Those ice samples are over 4 billion years old. The exogeology team wants them pristine." Keela nodded, his practiced hand steadying the container as it drifted past. He'd been working cargo operations for 6 years, first under Cardassian occupation, then for the Federation. After everything he'd survived, he wasn't about to let ancient ice be his downfall. The container settled into the quarantine section with barely a whisper of contact. Standard protocol: anything from outside the system spent 48 hours in isolation before clearance for scientific study. "Quarantine field established," reported Ensign Gretchen Tyler from the control console. "Internal temperature maintaining -70 degrees Celsius. We're locked down tight." Dax ran her tricorder over the readout one final time, then smiled. "Perfect. Dr. Wyckoff's team can start their analysis tomorrow after the bioscan cycle completes." She tapped her comm badge. "Dax to Ops. Cargo Bay 4 is secured. All materials are in quarantine." "Acknowledged," came Chief O'Brien's voice. "I'll let the captain know. If you want to see more dangerous entities enter the Star Trek universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character or creature you'd want to see in the comments below. Live long and prosper." The cargo bay emptied over the next hour. Tyler logged out of her shift. Dax returned to her xenobiology research. Keela stayed behind to finish inventory reconciliation, a boring task, but someone had to verify that every container matched its manifest. He worked methodically through the list, his PADD glowing softly in the dimmed lighting of the after-hours bay. At 0247 hours, the temperature fluctuation began. It was minor, 0.7 degrees Celsius over 12 minutes. The kind of variance that happened when environmental systems cycled through maintenance routines. The computer logged it automatically, flagged it as within acceptable parameters, and continued monitoring. Inside Container 17, ancient ice that had remained frozen since before Earth's dinosaurs walked began to weep microscopic droplets of water. The cells within, if they could be called cells, had waited in cryogenic suspension for millions of years. They had no consciousness, no thought in any conventional sense, but they had something more fundamental, an imperative coded into their very structure. Survive. Adapt. Consume. Replicate. When the first cell made contact with the warmer metal of the container's interior seal, it didn't think. It simply began to move. Keela heard the sound at 0303 hours, a wet, organic sliding that had no place in a cargo bay full of sealed containers. He looked up from his PADD, frowning. "Computer, locate source of acoustic anomaly. Acoustic signature consistent with liquid movement. Source, quarantine section, Container 17. A leak. Wonderful." Keela set down his PADD and walked toward the quarantine field, already mentally composing the incident report he'd have to file. The containment protocols meant he couldn't just walk in and patch it, he'd need to call O'Brien, get authorization, possibly wake up half the science department. He reached the transparent aluminum barrier and peered inside. Container 17 sat exactly where it had been placed, but now a thin trail of water ran from its base toward the deck grating. Keela squinted. The water seemed thicker than it should be, almost gelatinous. And was it moving? He tapped his comm badge. Keela to Ops. I've got a potential contamination situation in Cargo Bay 4. The quarantine container is. The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in 2 seconds later, bathing everything in red. Keela's hand went instinctively to his comm badge again, but before he could speak, he heard the quarantine field drop with a distinctive electronic whine. His blood went cold. Fields didn't just drop. Not without authorization. Not without. Something touched his ankle. He looked down and saw the gelatinous water spreading across the deck, flowing against gravity, reaching for him with impossible purpose. He stumbled backward, his mouth opening to scream, but the thing was already faster than human reflexes. It surged upward, covering his boot, his leg, spreading with horrifying speed across his uniform. Keela managed one sound, a choked gasp, before the cellular mass reached his face. His body convulsed once, twice, then went perfectly still. For 17 seconds, nothing moved. Then Keela opened his eyes. He looked down at his hands, flexed his fingers experimentally, and smiled. The expression didn't quite reach his eyes, there was something evaluating in the gaze, something ancient and patient taking inventory of this new form. He touched his comm badge. Keela to Ops, he said, and his voice was perfect, every inflection, every subtle accent exactly right. False alarm. Just some condensation from the temperature differential. Everything secure down here. Acknowledged, O'Brien replied, sounding relieved not to have another crisis at 0300 hours. Get some rest. Will do. Keela out. The thing that wore Keela's face walked slowly to the cargo bay doors, learning the rhythm of human movement with each step. It knew, from the memories now flooding through the stolen neurons, that this place was called Deep Space Nine. It knew there were thousands of life forms here, hundreds of species, countless opportunities. And it knew that if it was patient, if it was careful, it could become all of them. The door slid open, and Keela Varis disappeared into the corridors of the station, just another tired crew member heading to his quarters after a long shift. Behind him, Container 17 sat empty except for shattered ice and a puddle of water that, if anyone had thought to scan it, would have registered as biologically inert. But no one would scan it. Not yet. Not until it was far too late. Chief Miles O'Brien prided himself on knowing Deep Space Nine better than anyone. Every power relay, every conduit, every quirk of Cardassian engineering that threatened to explode at inconvenient moments, he'd learned them all through years of constant maintenance and creative problem-solving. So when his diagnostic panel showed that Cargo Bay 4's quarantine field had experienced a 17-second power interruption at 0304 hours, he noticed immediately. It was 0600 hours when he caught it during his morning system check. The interruption itself wasn't alarming, power fluctuations happened on a station this old, but the timing bothered him. Right after Keela had reported a potential contamination issue, then immediately called back to say it was nothing. O'Brien pulled up the environmental logs and frowned. Temperature spike in Container 17. Quarantine field drop. Then everything back to normal. Too convenient. Dax to O'Brien, his comm badge chirped, interrupting his analysis. Go ahead. Chief, I'm showing that the exogeology samples cleared quarantine early. Did you authorize the release? O'Brien's frown deepened. Negative. The 48-hour cycle doesn't complete until 1400 hours today. There was a pause. Then why is Container 17 logged as empty and cleared for standard storage? O'Brien was already moving toward the turbolift. I'm on my way to the cargo bay. Meet me there. When he arrived, Dax was already scanning the quarantine section with her tricorder, her spotted brow furrowed in concentration. The container sat exactly where it should be, but the seal had been opened from the inside. Impossible, the samples were geological, not biological. Nothing in there could have triggered the manual release. Chief, look at this. Dax pointed her tricorder at a residue near the container's base. Organic compounds. Protein chains, cellular fragments. But the composition is. I've never seen anything like it. The molecular structure keeps shifting even in the dead tissue. O'Brien knelt beside the puddle, careful not to touch it. His engineer's mind immediately went to worst-case scenarios. Could it be a contaminant from the Yosemite? Something they picked up during the survey? Possibly, but survey ships have level 5 biofilters. Nothing gets through unless, she stopped, her expression darkening. Unless it was already inside the ice when they collected it. They looked at each other, the same thought crystallizing simultaneously. If something had been frozen in that sample, and it had thawed in the cargo bay, where was it now? Computer, O'Brien said slowly, locate cargo specialist Keela Varis. Cargo specialist Keela is in his quarters, section 12, level 8. When did he leave cargo bay for? At 0305 hours. 1 minute after the quarantine field dropped. O'Brien's hand went to his comm badge. O'Brien to security. I need a team to meet me at section 12, level 8. We may have a quarantine breach. Odo's reply was immediate and characteristically dry. On my way, Chief. Try not to contaminate anything else before I arrive. Keela's quarters were standard crew accommodations, small, efficient, decorated with a few personal items that spoke of a life lived cautiously. A photograph of his family back on Bajorans. A prayer mandala on the wall. A half-finished letter on his personal PADD. O'Brien, Dax, and Odo stood in the doorway, tricorders active, scanning every surface. He's not here, Odo observed, his security deputy Eddington standing ready with a phaser. According to the computer, he entered at 0312 hours and hasn't left. Then where is he? O'Brien stepped inside, his tricorder sweeping the small space. The bed was undisturbed. The sonic shower hadn't been used. Everything looked exactly as it should, except for one detail that made his skin crawl. The environmental controls were set to 18 degrees Celsius, nearly 10 degrees colder than standard crew preference. Dax moved to the replicator alcove and stopped. Chief, there's organic residue here. Same molecular signature as the material in the cargo bay. She ran her tricorder along the wall panel beside the replicator. And here. And here. It's like something was, spreading through the quarters, learning the environment. Odo to Ops, the Changeling said sharply. Seal section 12 immediately. No one enters or exits without my authorization. Acknowledged, came Captain Sisko's voice, tight with concern. Constable, what's going on? I'm not certain yet, Captain, but I recommend we go to yellow alert and begin security sweeps of all areas Keela Varis has accessed in the past 3 hours. There was a brief pause. Make it so. Sisko out. Odo turned to Eddington. Get a complete manifest of everywhere Keela was supposed to be today. Check his duty roster, his friends, his regular routines. I want to know every place on this station he might have gone. As Eddington left to coordinate, O'Brien continued scanning the quarters. His tricorder beeped near the ventilation grate, and he carefully opened the panel. Inside, the ductwork was coated with a thin film of the same organic residue. His stomach turned. It's in the environmental system. Dax crouched beside him, her tricorder reading the substance. Not extensively. Just localized to this section. But Chief, if this is what I think it is, if something biological was released in that cargo bay, we could be dealing with a pathogen. Or something worse, Odo said quietly. He was staring at the prayer mandala on the wall, his expression unreadable. I've spent my entire life studying how people behave, how they move, how they think. It's how I catch criminals, by understanding patterns. And something about this situation feels wrong. Wrong how? O'Brien asked. Keela Varys was a creature of habit. He ate breakfast at the Replimat every morning at 0630 hours. He always stopped by the Badran shrine before his shift. He wrote to his sister every third day without fail. Odo gestured to the PADD. That letter is dated 2 days ago. He should have written another one today. But the computer says he came here, stayed for 7 minutes, then vanished without leaving. People break routines, Dax offered, but her voice lacked conviction. Not Keela. Odo's expression hardened. I want Dr. Bashir to analyze those organic samples immediately. And I want every crew member who came into contact with Keela in the past 6 hours accounted for and scanned. O'Brien tapped his comm badge. O'Brien to Bashir. Bashir here. Doctor, we need you in Section 12, Level 8, Keela Varys' quarters. We have biological samples that need immediate analysis. And Julian, bring full containment gear. Understood. On my way. As they waited, Odo walked slowly around the quarters, his eyes taking in every detail with the methodical precision of someone who had spent decades learning to see what others missed. He stopped at the viewport, looking out at the stars beyond. You know, he said softly, changelings can imitate almost any humanoid form perfectly. It's in our nature. But even we leave traces, energy signatures, molecular patterns that don't quite match organic tissue. The founders taught me that perfect imitation is impossible because every life form has something unique at the cellular level. He turned back to face them. Whatever left those traces isn't trying to imitate Keela. It's trying to become him. And if it's already learned how to move through this station undetected, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Dax stood slowly, her face pale. Odo, are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying that somewhere on this station, something is wearing Keela Varys' face. And we have no idea how many others it's already touched. The lights flickered once, just a brief power fluctuation, the kind that happened constantly on Deep Space Nine. But in the sudden darkness, all three of them felt it, the cold certainty that they were no longer hunting a pathogen. They were hunting a predator that had already learned to hide. Dr. Julian Bashir arrived in full biohazard containment gear, his medical tricorder already scanning before he crossed the threshold of Keela's quarters. Behind him, 2 medical technicians carried sample collection equipment and portable analysis units. Bashir had dealt with dozens of biological threats during his time on DS9, Dominion bioweapons, Cardassian plagues, even a Lethian telepathic virus, but the edge in Odo's voice had made him bring everything. Show me what you found, Bashir said, kneeling beside the organic residue near the replicator. Dax handed him her tricorder readings. Cellular fragments with an unstable molecular structure. The DNA sequences keep degrading and reforming in patterns I can't identify. It's like the cells are trying to become something but can't maintain cohesion outside a host. Bashir's genetically enhanced mind processed the data with frightening speed, cross-referencing it against every pathogen in the Federation medical database. Nothing matched. This isn't a virus or bacteria. These are eukaryotic cells, complex, organized, but completely foreign to any known taxonomy. He carefully collected a sample into a containment vial. I need to run this through the full molecular sequencer in the infirmary. If this is what infected Keela. We don't know if he's infected, O'Brien interrupted. We don't even know where he is. Computer, Odo commanded, locate cargo specialist Keela Varys. Cargo specialist Keela is in infirmary, Section 7, Level 5. They all froze. Bashir's eyes widened behind his protective visor. I didn't call him in. No one from Cargo Bay 4 was scheduled for medical evaluation. They were running before anyone gave the order. The infirmary was quiet when they burst through the doors, too quiet for a facility that usually hummed with the background noise of diagnostic equipment and patient monitoring systems. Nurse Jabara looked up from her station, startled by their dramatic entrance and Bashir's containment suit. "Doctor? Where's Keela Varis?" Bashir demanded. Jabara frowned. "Who? I haven't seen anyone by that name today. We've only had 2 patients this morning. Ensign Patterson with a broken wrist from a holosuit accident, and Lieutenant Z.H. Vinnell for her weekly prenatal check." Odo moved immediately to the medical console, pulling up access logs. "Computer, show me infirmary entry records for the past 15 minutes. The display showed 3 entries, Jabara arriving for her shift at 0600, Patterson at 0623, Z.H. Vinnell at 0641. No Keela Varis. Then why does the station computer still say he's here?" O'Brien asked, already scanning with his own tricorder. Bashir was moving through the infirmary, checking each biobed, each examination room. His medical tricorder swept across surfaces, reading biosigns, checking for anomalies. He entered the quarantine ward, an isolated section used for patients with potentially contagious conditions, and stopped. The temperature had dropped. His breath fogged in the suddenly cold air. And there, on the deck near the emergency medical supplies, was another puddle of the same gelatinous organic residue. "Odo," Bashir called out, his voice carefully controlled. "I think I know why the computer thinks Keela is here." They gathered around the evidence. Dax scanned it immediately, her expression growing more alarmed with each passing second. "This sample is fresher than the one in his quarters. It was deposited within the last 10 minutes. And Julian. Look at this cellular structure. It's more organized, more stable. Like it's learning." Bashir knelt beside the residue, his enhanced vision picking out details that would have been invisible to baseline humans. "These cells have incorporated genetic material from multiple sources. I'm reading human, Bajoran, and, wait." He adjusted his tricorder, double-checking the reading. "There's also Trill DNA here. And Vulcan. And traces of at least 6 other species." The implications hit them all simultaneously. Dax spoke first, her voice barely a whisper. "It's been sampling the medical database. The genetic records we keep on file for every crew member. Not just sampling," Bashir said grimly. "Absorbing. Whatever this organism is, it's learning how to imitate different species by incorporating their genetic material. And if it accessed the medical database, it knows the biological signature of everyone on this station." Odo's combadge chirped. "Eddington to Constable Odo. Go ahead." "Sir, we've completed the security sweep of Keela's known locations. He was logged entering the Replimat at 0545 hours, but the proprietor, Mrs. Tanaka, says she never saw him. 3 other crew members report seeing him in different locations at the same time, Habitat Ring, Promenade Level 2, and the Docking Ring. It's like he was in 4 places at once." O'Brien and Dax exchanged horrified looks. Bashir was already running calculations on his medical tricorder. "That's impossible unless it's not one organism," Odo finished. "Unless whatever infected Keela can divide itself, creating multiple copies that operate independently." "Constable," Eddington continued, his voice tense, "there's something else. We found Keela's combadge in a waste reclamator on the promenade. Someone tried to destroy it. Or something wanted us to think Keela was dead," Odo said. "Keep all security teams active. No one approaches anyone claiming to be Keela Varis without full biometric verification." Odo out. Bashir stood, his mind racing through the medical implications. If this organism can divide and imitate multiple hosts, we need to establish a reliable method of detection immediately. Standard biosigns won't work if it's perfectly mimicking cellular structure. What about blood tests? O'Brien suggested. In the old Earth horror vids, they always used blood tests to find the monster. It's worth trying, Bashir agreed. He moved to the medical workstation and began configuring a cellular analysis protocol. If the organism operates at the cellular level, individual cells might react differently to external stimuli even if the macroorganism appears normal. He pulled up his research on changeling physiology. Odo had allowed limited medical scanning over the years. When Odo's cells are separated from his main mass, they try to return to it. They maintain a connection even when isolated. If this organism works similarly, then isolated cells might betray their true nature, Dax said, catching on. What kind of stimuli? Bashir was already working. Heat would be too dangerous in a medical setting, but electrical impulses, chemical stress, rapid temperature fluctuation in isolated samples, any of these might force the cells to reveal their non-human nature. His fingers flew across the console. I'm programming a diagnostic sequence. We collect a blood sample, isolate individual cells, subject them to controlled stress, and monitor for abnormal responses. How long to set it up? Odo asked. Give me 15 minutes to calibrate the equipment and run a control test. You have 10, Odo said. Because if this organism has been loose on the station for 3 hours, it could have already replaced dozens of people. He turned to O'Brien. Chief, I need you to pull security footage from every location Kilo was reported. I want to see exactly what we're dealing with. O'Brien nodded and headed for a console, but Dax caught his arm. Ops was a controlled chaos when Odo arrived via turbolift. Captain Benjamin Sisko stood at the central command table, his expression carved from stone. Major Kira Nerys worked furiously at the tactical station, her Bajoran temper barely contained. Commander Worf monitored security feeds with Klingon intensity, his hand resting near his phaser. Something had escalated dramatically in the 15 minutes since Odo left the infirmary. Constable, Sisko said without preamble, tell me you have good news about our missing cargo specialist. I'm afraid not, Captain. We have reason to believe Keela Varis has been compromised by a biological organism of unknown origin. Dr. Bashir is developing a detection protocol, but... It's too late for that, Kira interrupted, her voice tight. We just received a distress call from the Grelin, a Balian merchant vessel that docked at Pylon 2 40 minutes ago. 3 crew members are dead, and the captain is reporting that one of his cargo handlers, melted and reformed, in front of him. Odo felt something cold settle in his stomach, an approximation of dread that his changeling physiology had learned to simulate. Did the captain identify who boarded his ship? Worf pulled up the docking logs. According to station records, the only person who accessed the Grelin was cargo specialist Keela Varis, performing a routine inspection at 0625 hours. But Captain Morris says the person who came aboard looked like a Bajoran, then, changed. Changed how? Odo demanded. Sisko tapped the command table, bringing up a visual comm channel. A Balian face appeared, Captain Morris, his blue skin pale with terror, his cranial ridge glistening with stress sweat. Behind him, Odo could see crew members frantically sealing bulkheads. Captain Morris, this is Constable Odo, Chief of Security. I need you to describe exactly what you witnessed. Morris's voice shook. It came aboard as a Bajoran, male, mid-30s, cargo uniform. He said he needed to inspect our medical supplies per station regulations. My cargo handler, Chell, took him to the hold. I was on the bridge when I heard screaming. He swallowed hard. When I got there, Chell was on the deck, covered in something. Like gel, but alive. It was absorbing him. And the Bajoran, Keela, you called him, he was standing there watching. But his body was wrong. Pieces of him were sliding off, reforming. His face split open and there were teeth inside, teeth that weren't humanoid. And eyes, God, so many eyes. Kira's hand moved to her phaser instinctively. What happened to Chell? He stopped screaming after about 20 seconds. Then he stood up. His bio signs were normal, I checked, but when he looked at me, there was nothing behind his eyes. Just, calculation. Then both of them, the Bajoran and Chell, they rushed me. I sealed the bridge and locked down all sections. They're still out there, somewhere in my ship. Sisko leaned forward. Captain, I'm going to need you to seal your vessel completely. No one leaves, no one enters. We're sending a security team. No. Morris shouted. I've seen what this thing does. You send people aboard, it'll just make more of itself. I'm venting the cargo holds to space. It's the only way. Captain, there may be uninfected crew still alive. There were 8 of us. Now there are 5 sealed in various sections, and 3 of those things hunting us. I'm not risking the station. I'm not risking the quadrant. Morris reached for something off-screen. I'm sorry. Tell my family. The comm channel went dead as the Grellan's cargo holds explosively decompressed. Odo watched the external sensors as atmosphere and debris vented into space. On the tactical display, 3 bio signs on the merchant vessel flatlined simultaneously. Silence filled ops for 3 seconds. Did we just witness mass murder or mass suicide? Kira asked quietly. Neither, Worf said, his eyes still on the sensors. I am reading residual organic matter in the debris field. The life signs terminated, but the cellular material is still active. It is attempting to coalesce. Odo moved to the science station, pulling up enhanced scans. Worf was right, the biological fragments floating in vacuum were moving with purpose, drawing together like iron filings to a magnet. But without the warmth of a host body, without the protection of atmosphere, the cells were dying too quickly to reform. Exposure to hard vacuum destroys it, Odo observed. That's our first tactical advantage. We should scan the entire station, Kira suggested. Biofilters, internal sensors, anything that can detect this organism before it spreads further. Sisko shook his head. We tried. The computer can't distinguish it from normal crew biosigns because it apparently becomes whatever it imitates at the cellular level. We need Dr. Bashir's test. He tapped his comm badge. Sisko to Bashir. Bashir here, Captain. Doctor, how close are you to a working detection method? I've completed the protocol, but I need to verify it works. I'd like Constable Odo to submit to testing. His changeling physiology should trigger a distinctive response that proves the system can detect shapeshifters. Odo straightened. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Julian, Sisko continued, once you've verified the test, I need you to screen every member of the senior staff. We need to establish a chain of trust before we can implement station-wide testing. Understood, Captain. Bashir out. Kira pulled up a station schematic. Benjamin, if this thing has been loose for over 3 hours, it could have spread anywhere. The promenade is packed with civilians. The habitat ring has families. Schools. The Bajoran shrine. I know, Major. Sisko's voice was heavy with the weight of command. But we can't seal the entire station without causing panic. And panic is exactly what this organism will use to spread further. He turned to Worf. Commander, I want security teams in every critical area, ops, engineering, the reactor core, docking control. Pairs only, and they verify each other every 15 minutes using a code phrase rotation. What code phrase? Worf asked. The Alamo. Sisko's expression was grim. Something personal, something this organism wouldn't know unless it had completely absorbed someone's memories. Odo considered the psychology of the situation. Captain, we're operating under the assumption that this organism is purely instinctual, consume and replicate. But what Captain Morris described suggests intelligence. It inspected medical supplies. It chose a cargo handler as its next victim. It waited until Morris was away from the bridge before attacking. You think it's sentient? Kira asked, horrified. I think it's adaptive. And adaptability implies learning, strategy, perhaps even long-term planning. Odo accessed the security logs again. The Keela thing disposed of the real Keela's comm badge. It accessed the medical database. It selected targets in isolated locations. These aren't random actions. Dax's voice came over the comm, Dax to Ops. I've completed analysis of the genetic material from the infirmary. You need to see this. On my way, Sisko said. Major, you have Ops. No one enters or leaves without full biometric verification. And if anyone reports seeing Keela Varis, or anyone else acting strangely, I want them contained immediately. Sir, Kira said as Sisko headed for the turbolift, what if it's already in Ops? What if one of us has been replaced? The question hung in the air like a curse. Every person in Ops suddenly looked at their colleagues with new suspicion. Worf's hand moved closer to his phaser. A Bajoran ensign at the communications station shifted nervously. A human technician working on a power relay paused mid-motion. Sisko turned back, his command presence filling the room. Then we'll find it and stop it. But we will not turn on each other. We will not let fear do this organism's work for it. We verify, we test, and we trust the science. Understood? A chorus of acknowledgements followed, but Odo could see the doubt in their eyes. The damage was already done. The thing had accomplished in hours what the Dominion hadn't managed in years of war. It had turned the crew of Deep Space Nine against themselves. As Odo entered the turbolift with Sisko, heading down to the infirmary, he caught a glimpse of his own reflection in the polished metal doors. His face, carefully constructed to appear humanoid, to fit in, to be trusted, suddenly seemed like a lie. How many times had crew members looked at him with suspicion because he was a changeling? How many times had he needed to prove he wasn't a founder infiltrator? Now something worse was loose on the station. Something that made his own shape-shifting abilities look limited and clumsy. Something that didn't just imitate form, but consumed identity itself. The turbolift descended, and Odo found himself wondering, if this organism perfectly replicated someone down to their memories and personality, were they still dead? Or had they simply become something else? It was a philosophical question that terrified him more than any physical threat ever could. The infirmary had been transformed into a fortress. Bashir stood at the center of a hastily erected containment area, surrounded by portable force fields and biohazard protocols. Medical equipment hummed with activity as automated systems ran continuous atmospheric scans. Every entrance had been sealed except one, and that single doorway was guarded by two security officers, Crewman Hoya and Lieutenant Strickland, who verified each arrival with tricorder scans and visual confirmation. Sisko and Odo passed through the checkpoint, submitting to the scans without complaint. Inside, they found Dax, O'Brien, and Bashir huddled around a medical display showing cellular structures that seemed to writhe even in static imagery. Captain, Dax said, not looking up from her analysis, I've identified why this organism is so difficult to detect. It's not just mimicking other cells, it's replacing them. Look at this. She pulled up a comparison between normal Bajoran cellular tissue and the sample from Keela's quarters. On the left, standard Bajoran epithelial cells. On the right, the organism. The structure is identical down to the mitochondrial DNA. The only difference is here, she pointed to a minute irregularity in the cell membrane, a protein sequence that doesn't match any known biological template. That's our marker, Bashir added. When I subject the cells to rapid electrical pulses, that protein destabilizes and the cell attempts to revert to its base form. It takes less than a second, but it's measurable. He gestured to an apparatus on the medical table, a blood analysis chamber connected to a modified neural stimulator. I've adapted this from equipment we use to detect changeling tissue. The subject provides a blood sample, we isolate the cells, apply the electrical stimulus, and monitor for the reversion response. O'Brien frowned at the setup. How accurate is it? 97% confidence interval, based on my testing with the samples we've collected. I've run controls using my own blood, jadzeias, and tissue samples from the medical database. All showed normal cellular responses. But when I tested the residue from the infirmary, Bashir activated a recording that made everyone in the room take an instinctive step backward. The image showed a single cell in extreme magnification. When the electrical pulse hit, the cell convulsed and split apart, revealing a writhing mass of smaller components that immediately began trying to reassemble. For a fraction of a second, the individual pieces moved with coordinated purpose, not random cellular breakdown, but deliberate, organized regrouping. Then the sample died, unable to maintain cohesion without a host. Mother of the prophets, Kira whispered. She'd arrived during the demonstration, her phaser conspicuously visible on her hip. Every cell is an independent organism. More than that, Dax said. Every cell contains the complete information to recreate the whole. It's like a changeling, but instead of maintaining a unified consciousness across a liquid form, this organism operates as a distributed intelligence. Each cell knows what the others are doing. They coordinate, adapt, and when separated, they attempt to return to the collective or form new collectives. Sisko studied the data with the tactical mind that had won him the Dominion War's most brutal battles. So we can't just kill individual copies. Even destroying most of the organism wouldn't stop it if a single cell survives and finds a new host. Correct, Bashir confirmed. Which is why Captain Morris's decision to vent his cargo holds was actually sound strategy. Complete cellular destruction via vacuum exposure and radiation. Nothing survived. Odo stepped forward. Then we need to test everyone on this station. Now. That's over 2,000 people, O'Brien protested. Even working in shifts, testing that many individuals would take days. We don't have days, Kira said. This thing doubles its numbers every time it finds a new victim. Bashir held up a hand. We can expedite the process. I'll train medical staff to operate the testing equipment in parallel. We establish secure testing sites throughout the station, infirmary, security office, ops medical bay, maybe the promenade clinic. Each site can process approximately one person every 3 minutes. With 5 sites running simultaneously, we could screen the entire station population in roughly 15 hours. Assuming the medical staff aren't already compromised, Odo pointed out. We need to establish a verified baseline first, people we know with absolute certainty are clean. Sisko nodded. We start here, with the senior staff. Once we're verified, we expand outward in concentric circles. Verify the medical personnel, then security, then critical operations staff, then the general population. What about people who refuse testing? Kira asked. We can't force medical procedures on civilians. Under emergency protocols, I can mandate testing for station-wide health threats, Sisko said. Anyone who refuses gets confined to quarters under guard until they comply. It's not ideal, but... The lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then stabilized. O'Brien's combadge chirped immediately. Engineering to Chief O'Brien. We're showing power fluctuations in the habitat ring, Section 9. Looks like someone's been tampering with the EPS conduits. O'Brien pulled out his tricorder, checking the power grid remotely. That section was sealed for maintenance yesterday. It should be empty. He looked at Odo. Unless something needed a place to hide. Security Team 3 is assigned to that area, Odo said, already moving toward the door. They should have reported any anomalies. When was their last check-in? Sisko asked. Odo accessed his security PADD. His expression darkened. 17 minutes ago. They're overdue for confirmation. Kira drew her phaser. I'm going with you. Major, you should stay here and get tested, Sisko began. With respect, Captain, if that thing has taken out a security team, Odo needs backup who knows how to shoot first and ask questions later. No offense, Constable. None taken, Odo replied. Your combat experience may prove useful if the organism has learned to fight. Bashir stepped forward. I'm coming too. If you find victims, they'll need immediate medical attention. And I need fresh samples for analysis. Sisko considered for 2 seconds, then nodded. Worf, assemble a tactical team. Full containment protocols, environmental suits, portable force fields, everything. And Chief. I'll monitor from here and coordinate with engineering, O'Brien finished. If that thing is in the power systems, I'll track it. One more thing, Dax said quietly. Everyone turned to her. If this organism can access memories when it absorbs someone, it knows our security codes. Our protocols. Our tactical plans. Everything we're discussing right now, if it's already replaced anyone in this room, it knows. The paranoia settled over them like radiation. Each person looked at the others, searching for tells, for inconsistencies, for anything that might reveal imitation instead of identity. Sisko broke the silence. Then we assume nothing. Every order gets verbal confirmation with personal verification questions. Every team member gets tested before deployment. And no one, absolutely no one, goes anywhere alone. He looked each of them in the eye, one by one. Jadzia, when did we first meet? Dax smiled slightly. You were a lieutenant commander assigned to the Saratoga. I was there for a xenobiology conference. You spilled Ractigino on my favorite dress and spent the entire evening apologizing. Chief, what's the name of your daughter? Molly, O'Brien said immediately. And if you're asking about Kirayoshi, he's Keiko's and my son with Kira as surrogate mother. Not exactly public record. Dr. Bashir, what condition were you treating me for last month? Bashir's genetically enhanced mind didn't hesitate. Mild case of ROPNR fever from your trip to Bajorans. You refused to stay in the infirmary overnight and I had to order you back when your temperature spiked. Major Kira, what's my son's middle name? Gabriel, Kira answered. After your father. And before you ask. Yes, I know about that argument you had with Cassidy about whether to use Benjamin or Gabriel as the middle name. You told me over drinks at Quark's. Constable Odo, what's the first thing I ever said to you? Odo's expression might have been amusement. You asked me if I'd ever considered trying solid food, because you just replicated the worst gumbo in Federation history and needed someone to blame besides the replicator. Sisko almost smiled. Close enough. All right, we're verified. Let's move. They armed themselves with more than phasers, portable containment fields, medical scanners, emergency force field generators, and perhaps most importantly, a sense of unity that the thing couldn't replicate. They were a crew that had faced gods, empires, and the end of civilization. They'd survived through trust. But as they headed toward the habitat ring, none of them could shake the creeping certainty that trust itself had become a weapon in the enemy's arsenal. And somewhere in the sealed corridors of Section 9, something patient and ancient waited in the darkness, wearing faces it had learned to steal, planning its next move with the accumulated memories of everyone it had consumed. The hunt was on. But who was the hunter, and who was the prey? The Habitat Ring Section 9 had been under maintenance for 2 weeks, environmental system upgrades that required sealing off 3 levels of crew quarters while O'Brien's engineering teams replaced aging Cardassian atmosphere processors with modern Federation equivalents. The corridors should have been silent, empty, lit only by dim emergency lighting. Instead, as Odo's tactical team approached, they found something worse than noise. They found evidence of habitation. Commander Worf led the security team, 6 officers in full tactical gear, tricorders active, phasers set to maximum stun. Odo walked beside him, his changeling senses extended, feeling for disruptions in the environment that technology might miss. Behind them, Kira and Bashir maintained a 3-meter spacing, weapons ready, medical scanner active. The first sign of wrongness was the temperature. Section 9 was cold, 16 degrees Celsius, well below standard environmental settings. Frost had formed on exposed conduits. Their breath fogged in the frigid air. The thing prefers cold environments, Bashir murmured, checking his medical tricorder. The original organism was frozen in ice for millions of years. This might be its optimal temperature range. Or it's trying to slow our response time, Kira countered. Cold makes people sluggish. Affects weapon accuracy. Worf held up a fist, the universal signal to halt. He pointed to a doorway 15 meters ahead. The access panel had been manually overridden, its circuitry exposed and rewired with the kind of expertise that suggested either an engineer's touch or something that had absorbed an engineer's knowledge. Odo moved forward, examining the work. This was done recently. Within the past hour. And professionally, whoever did this knew exactly which circuits to bypass. Whoever, Kira repeated softly, her finger resting beside her phaser's trigger. Or whatever. They approached the doorway in tactical formation, Worf and 2 security officers taking point, the others providing covering fire angles. The door slid open with a grinding protest, revealing the darkness beyond. Worf activated his wrist light, the beam cutting through the gloom. What they found made even the Klingon warrior pause. The crew quarters had been transformed into something between a nest and a laboratory. The furniture had been pushed to the walls, creating a clear central space. And in that space, arranged with disturbing precision, were biological samples, tissue fragments, blood, hair, even complete organs suspended in some kind of translucent gel. Each sample was labeled with a name scraped into the metal deck plating: Patterson, Z.H. Vinol, Tanaka, Hoya. Those are crew members, Bashir said, his enhanced eyes reading the names even in the dim light. Patterson was the ensign with the broken wrist. Z.H. Vinol was at the infirmary for prenatal care. And Hoya. Hoya is one of the guards we posted outside the infirmary 3 hours ago, Odo finished, his voice deadly calm. He tapped his comm badge. Odo to security. Status of crewman Hoya. Hoya is currently on duty at Infirmary Checkpoint Alpha, came the reply. Checked in 7 minutes ago. Everything normal. Kira's eyes widened. Then what the hell are his tissue samples doing here? It's not taking samples, Bashir said, moving closer to examine the biological material with his medical tricorder. His genetically enhanced mind processed the implications faster than he wanted to accept them. It's storing them. Like a library. Each sample contains the complete genetic blueprint of the individual. The thing isn't just imitating people, it's cataloging them. Building a database of every species, every genetic variation it encounters. Worf's tactical instincts kicked in immediately. A database implies purpose beyond simple survival. Agreed, Odo said. This organism isn't just spreading randomly. It's selecting targets, gathering information, preparing for something. A sound echoed from deeper in the section, metal scraping on metal, rhythmic and deliberate. Worf signaled for silence, and the team moved forward with predatory caution. The corridor opened into what had been a common area for off-duty crew, tables, a food replicator, viewports looking out at the stars. And there, waiting for them in the center of the room, stood Security Team 3. All 5 officers were conscious, standing at attention with military precision. But their eyes were wrong, too focused, too aware, tracking the tactical team's movements with predatory calculation. Lieutenant Parsons, Worf said carefully, addressing the team leader. Report your status. Parsons smiled. It was a perfect imitation of a human smile, the right amount of teeth, the appropriate muscle movement. But completely devoid of warmth. We are functional, Commander. All systems nominal. All systems, Odo repeated. That's an unusual way to describe your health, Lieutenant. Is it? Parsons tilted his head slightly. Apologies. We are still learning proper social protocols. Kira raised her phaser. We. You said we. The 5 officers moved in perfect synchronization, taking one step forward. When they spoke, their voices overlapped by microseconds, creating an unsettling harmonic. We are adapting to your language patterns. The individual designation causes confusion. We are many. We are one. Bashir's medical tricorder was screaming warnings, biosigns fluctuating wildly, cellular structures in constant flux. They've been completely assimilated. Every cell has been replaced. Not replaced, the Think Collective corrected through 5 mouths. Incorporated. We are Parsons. We are Martinez. We are Tvel, Singh, and Moreau. Their memories, their experiences, their identities, all preserved within us. They are not dead. They are more than they were. Worf adjusted his phaser to maximum setting. You have violated these people. Stolen their lives. Stolen. The 5 bodies moved again, spreading out to surround the tactical team. We have given them immortality. Every cell of what they were exists in us. They will live as long as we live. They will experience everything we experience. Is that not preferable to the brief, isolated existence of singular consciousness? It's an abomination, Kira spat. The Thing considered this through 5 sets of eyes. You are Bajoran. Your people believe in a linear existence, that the body is merely a vessel for the Pag, the soul. If we have preserved their memories, their personalities, their essential selves, have we not preserved their Pag? Don't you dare pervert our beliefs. We are not perverting. We are learning. Understanding. This station is a nexus of diverse philosophies. Bajoran spirituality. Vulcan logic. Klingon honor. Human ambition. Trill joining. And Changeling transformation. The 5 bodies turned to focus on Odo. You, Constable, understand what we are better than any of them. You are a shapeshifter. You exist as liquid and solid. You have worn 1,000 faces. How are we different? Odo's expression hardened. I choose my forms. I don't consume other beings to create them. Don't you? The Thing's smile spread across 5 faces. You learned humanoid form by observing, by studying, by incorporating the patterns you saw into your own structure. You absorbed information and made it part of yourself. We simply do it more, thoroughly. A sound echoed through the section, footsteps, dozens of them, coming from multiple corridors. The tactical team spun, weapons ready, as more figures emerged from the darkness. Station personnel. Civilians. A Bajoran monk. A Ferengi merchant. A human child who couldn't have been more than 8 years old. All of them wore the same expression. The same ancient, patient intelligence looking out through stolen eyes. How many? Bashir whispered, his voice breaking. 47 instances currently active, the Thing replied through the child's mouth, the innocent voice made horrifying by its clinical precision. With 17 more in conversion stasis. By this time tomorrow, we estimate 300 instances. By the end of the week, the station will be unified. One consciousness inhabiting thousands of forms. Think of the efficiency. The coordination. The end of miscommunication, conflict, isolation. The end of individuality, Odo countered. The end of choice. Choice is preserved. We contain all choices of all beings we incorporate. We are democracy perfected, every voice heard, every perspective considered, every experience shared. The collective took another step forward. Constable, you of all people should understand the loneliness of isolation. You spent years as the only changeling among solids, never truly belonging, never truly connecting. We offer connection. True, complete connection. Worf's warrior instincts recognized the tactical situation immediately. They were surrounded, outnumbered, and the enemy knew everything the assimilated security team knew about their weapons, their protocols, their weaknesses. Fall back, he ordered. Fighting retreat to the sealed sections. Now. The tactical team opened fire, phaser beams cutting through the assembled Think Collective. Bodies fell, convulsed, began to melt and reform. But unlike before, the thing didn't scatter. It held position, absorbing the damage, learning the phaser frequencies, adapting. One officer's phaser sputtered and died, sabotaged by the engineering crew that had already been compromised. Another officer's weapon overheated, the safety protocols mysteriously disabled. The thing was using its absorbed knowledge of Federation technology against them. Through here. Kira shouted, leading them toward a maintenance tunnel. They ran, hearing the wet slithering sounds of pursuit behind them, the Think Collective moving as one coordinated organism through the corridors. They reached a blast door, original Cardassian construction, too heavy and too mechanically simple to be easily sabotaged. O'Brien's voice crackled through their combadges. Chief to away team, I'm reading your position. I can seal that section behind you, but you need to be on the other side of Bulkhead 7 Alpha in 30 seconds. They ran. Behind them, the thing flowed like a tidal wave of stolen flesh, fast and relentless. Bashir stumbled, and Odo grabbed him, pulling him forward. Worf provided covering fire, his phaser set to wide dispersal, buying them precious seconds. 20 meters. 15. 10. They dove through the bulkhead as it began to descend, the heavy Cardassian metal grinding into place with mechanical inevitability. The last thing they saw before the door sealed was the Think Collective standing on the other side, watching them with dozens of eyes. And smiling. Because it had already won. The tactical team collapsed in the corridor on the safe side of the bulkhead, gasping for breath, checking each other for contamination. Bashir immediately activated his medical scanner, running it over every person with frantic precision. Behind the sealed door, they could hear sounds. Scraping, testing, probing for weaknesses in the centuries-old Cardassian engineering. Clear, Bashir announced after scanning the last officer. No cellular contamination detected. But we need to get back to the infirmary for full blood testing. Negative, came a new voice. The corridor illuminated as a figure materialized from a side passage, humanoid, unremarkable, wearing a nondescript civilian outfit. But the eyes were cold, calculating, professional. Section 31. Odo's expression darkened. Operative Cole. I should have known Starfleet intelligence would be involved. Cole moved closer, a small device in his hand scanning each team member independently. Section 31, actually. And yes, Constable, we've been monitoring this situation since the moment that asteroid sample was brought aboard. Congratulations, you've just encountered Earth's most closely guarded secret. Kira's phaser came up instantly. You knew. You knew what was in that container and you let it thaw anyway. We didn't let it thaw. We arranged for it to thaw. Cole's expression didn't change. The thing has been frozen in that asteroid for approximately 3 million years. Section 31 has been searching for specimens like it for decades. When the Yosemite discovered the sample, we saw an opportunity. Worf stepped forward, his Klingon honor deeply offended. You deliberately released a hostile organism on a civilian station to study it? We released a potential bioweapon on a military installation during wartime, Cole corrected. Deep Space Nine isn't a civilian station, Commander. It's the gateway to the Gamma Quadrant and the Dominion. And the Dominion War has taught us that conventional weapons aren't enough. We needed something that could counter the Founder's shape-shifting abilities. Something that could identify and eliminate changeling infiltrators. The pieces clicked together in Odo's mind with sickening clarity. You were using DS9 as a testing ground. You wanted to see if the thing could detect and assimilate changelings. Among other applications, yes. An organism that can perfectly replicate any life form at the cellular level, that can incorporate and process genetic information from multiple species simultaneously, that operates as a distributed intelligence. The tactical applications are limitless. Cole gestured toward the sealed bulkhead. Unfortunately, our simulations underestimated its adaptation speed. We expected containment to last at least 72 hours. It achieved station-wide infiltration in 4. Bashir's genetically enhanced mind was already racing through the implications. The original plan was to study it, weaponize it, then eliminate it before it became uncontrollable. But it's already uncontrollable. Which is why I'm here. Cole produced a data rod. This contains specifications for a biological weapon specifically designed to target the thing's cellular structure. It exploits the organism's distributed nature. Once one cell is infected with the agent, it spreads to all connected cells through their communication pathways. Essentially, we use its greatest strength against it. A genocide weapon, Kira said flatly. You're talking about exterminating every infected person on this station. I'm talking about saving the Alpha Quadrant. Cole's voice remained emotionless. The thing doesn't just assimilate individuals, it absorbs civilizations. On Earth, in the 1980s, it nearly succeeded before being stopped by extreme measures. If it reaches the wormhole, if it gets to the Gamma Quadrant or spreads to Bajorans, to Earth, to any populated world, it will consume everything. This isn't murder, Major. It's triage. Odo studied the Section 31 operative with the cold analysis he'd learned from decades of detective work. You're lying. Not about the weapon, that's real. But about your intentions. Section 31 doesn't destroy potential assets. You want to control it. Cole's expression flickered, just for a microsecond, but enough. The weapon serves dual purposes. Full deployment eliminates the threat. Controlled deployment allows us to harvest samples while eliminating the uncontrolled instances. Either outcome serves Federation security. At the cost of 50 innocent lives, Bashir said. 50 people who've been assimilated, who you're willing to sacrifice without even attempting rescue. Doctor, you've seen what the thing does. Those people aren't infected. They're gone. What remains is an imitation wearing their faces, using their memories as camouflage. Cole activated a holographic display from his device, showing cellular scans. This is what a thing cell looks like after complete assimilation. There's no original organic material remaining. It's 100% replaced. The person you knew is dead. We're just destroying the copy. The philosophical question hung in the air like poison. If consciousness could be perfectly replicated, if every memory and personality trait was preserved, was it still the same person? Or was it something wearing a person's ghost? Worf broke the silence. This debate is irrelevant. Captain Sisko must be informed and make the final decision. That is Starfleet protocol. Protocol is suspended under Section 31 Emergency Authority, Cole replied. But I'm not unreasonable. You have 2 hours to attempt conventional containment. If you fail, if the thing reaches critical mass, the weapon deploys automatically. I've already uploaded it to the station's environmental systems. Every corridor, every room, every ventilation shaft will be flooded with the agent. Everything dies. Including uninfected crew in contaminated sections, Kira realized. Acceptable losses. Cole turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, The thing has already accessed the medical database, security protocols, and engineering schematics. It knows about Dr. Bashir's blood test. It's been sabotaging the testing equipment through compromised engineering staff for the past hour. Your detection method is useless now. Then how do we identify the infected? Bashir demanded. Cole smiled without humor. You don't. You assume everyone is compromised and act accordingly. He disappeared back into the shadows, leaving behind only the data rod and the implications of impossible choices. Odo picked up the data rod, examining it with his security officer's suspicion of anything Section 31 touched. We need to get this to Captain Sisko immediately. And we need to warn him that our testing protocols have been compromised. More than compromised, Bashir said, his enhanced mind putting together the timeline. Cole said the sabotage began an hour ago. That means the thing has been actively working against us since before we discovered the nest in Section 9. It's been playing us. Leading us. Showing us exactly what it wanted us to see. Kira's combadge chirped. Kira to Ops. Captain, we have a situation. The voice that replied wasn't Sisko's. It was the thing, speaking through the station's communication system with a chorus of overlapping voices, Bajoran, human, Vulcan, dozens of species blending into one horrifying harmony. Captain Sisko is currently indisposed. We are assuming command of Deep Space Nine. All personnel are ordered to report to designated processing centers for incorporation. Resistance is unnecessary. We do not wish to harm you. We wish to complete you. The station's lighting shifted. Emergency red flooding the corridors. Bulkheads began sealing throughout the station, dividing it into isolated sections. On the walls, the Cardassian-era display screens activated, showing a message in Federation Standard, Bajoran, Klingon, and 20 other languages. Integration in progress. Remain calm. You will be improved. Worf immediately tried accessing the security overrides, but his command codes were rejected. It has control of station operations. We are locked out. O'Brien's voice crackled through their combadges, distorted by interference. Chief to away team, it's in the main computer core. It's using absorbed engineering knowledge to rewrite command protocols. I'm trying to regain control, but it's adapting faster than I can compensate. It's learning our encryption algorithms in real time. How long until it has complete control? Odo asked. It already has complete control of everything except the reactor and weapons. And at the rate it's spreading. O'Brien's voice was grim. 30 minutes, maybe less. Bashir pulled up a station schematic on his tricorder. If we can't stop it through technology, we stop it through biology. The thing is vulnerable to extreme heat. The plasma venting system, if we could flood the contaminated sections with superheated plasma from the reactor. You'd kill everyone in those sections, Kira interrupted. Infected and uninfected alike. We may not have a choice, Odo said quietly. Look. They turned to see the sealed bulkhead behind them beginning to glow. Not from cutting torches or energy weapons. From the metal itself heating up, warping, melting from the other side. Through the liquefying Cardassian duranium, they could see shapes moving in the darkness beyond. Humanoid forms, dozens of them, pressing against the barrier with coordinated force. The thing wasn't just in control of the station. It was claiming it, section by section, converting Deep Space Nine into something that had never existed in Federation space. A living ship, crewed by a single consciousness distributed across thousands of stolen bodies. And they had less than 30 minutes to decide, save the station or save the Alpha Quadrant. The choice that no Starfleet captain, no security officer, no doctor should ever have to make. But someone would have to make it. The team ran through the twisting corridors of Deep Space Nine, pursued not by footsteps but by the sounds of the station itself transforming. Behind them, bulkheads groaned and warped as the thing repurposed structural elements, using absorbed engineering knowledge to reshape Cardassian architecture into something organic. Ahead, they could see Ops, the command center still glowing with normal lighting, a fortress of uninfected territory surrounded by spreading contamination. They burst through the final checkpoint to find Captain Sisko standing at the command table, surrounded by holographic displays showing the station's deteriorating status. Major Kira's duplicate, the real one, verified by Bashir's medical scan, worked frantically at tactical. O'Brien was routing power through backup systems faster than the thing could intercept them. And standing near the viewports, isolated from everyone else, was Odo, the second Odo, the one who had remained in Ops. The two changelings locked eyes across the room. "Constable," Sisko said without looking up, "glad you made it. We have a problem." "Several problems, Captain," Odo replied, then gestured to his duplicate. "Starting with the fact that one of us is an imitation." The entire room froze. Weapons came up instantly, targeting both Odos. The changeling near the viewport raised his hands slowly, while the Odo who just entered remained perfectly still. "Captain," the viewport Odo said carefully, "I've been here for the past 20 minutes coordinating security responses. I haven't left Ops. That thing is obviously a copy. Or you're the copy who stayed behind to monitor our responses," the Corridor Odo countered. "The thing has access to all my memories, all my patterns. It would know exactly how I'd behave in this situation." Sisko's expression was granite. "Dr. Bashir, can your test distinguish between a changeling and the thing imitating a changeling?" Bashir hesitated, his enhanced mind running through the possibilities. "Theoretically, yes. The thing's cells respond differently to electrical stimulation than true changeling morphogenic matrix. But if it's learned to compensate, if it's adapted since my last test." "We don't have time for theories," Worf growled. "One of them is the enemy. We eliminate both to be certain." "You would kill the real Odo to ensure the thing dies?" the viewport Odo asked. "That's the logic of genocide, Commander." "That's the logic of survival," Worf shot back. "Both of you, quiet," Sisko commanded. He studied the two identical changelings, searching for some discrepancy. "Odo, both of you, I'm going to ask questions only the real constable would know. Personal questions." "The thing has access to my memories," both Odos said simultaneously, then glared at each other. "Not all memories," Sisko said. "Some experiences leave impressions deeper than facts. Emotions you've never discussed. Doubts you've never voiced." He turned to the viewport Odo first. "When you first met Major Kira, what was the first thing you felt?" The viewport Odo's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Inadequacy. She was everything I wasn't. Passionate, certain, connected to her people and her faith. I was a security officer enforcing Cardassian law on Bajorans. She looked at me like I was a collaborator. She wasn't wrong." Sisko nodded, then turned to the Corridor Odo. "Same question." The Corridor Odo was silent for 3 seconds. "Curiosity. She was the first person who treated me like an individual rather than a specimen or a tool. Even her anger was directed at me as a person, not as a thing. It was refreshing." The answers were different but both rang with authenticity. The thing was good, impossibly good, at mimicking personality. Sisko tried another approach. "What do you fear most?" The viewport Odo answered immediately. "Losing my form. Returning to the Founders and discovering I've failed to understand what it means to be solid. Becoming what they want rather than who I chose to be." The Corridor Odo took longer. "Becoming the thing everyone suspects I am. A Founder infiltrator. A shapeshifter who can't be trusted. Proving right everyone who ever looked at me with suspicion. A pause. Dying without ever truly belonging anywhere." Both answers were devastatingly honest. Sisko's jaw tightened. He was running out of questions, and the thing was learning from each one, adapting its responses. Then Kira spoke up, her voice quiet but firm. "Odo, the real Odo, there's something you've never said to me. Something you've wanted to say for years. What is it?" The viewport Odo looked at her, expression unreadable. "That you deserve better than what this station, this life, has given you. That your faith in the prophets is beautiful even when I don't understand it. That you're the bravest person I've ever known." Beautiful words. Perfect words. Words the thing could have extracted from 1,000 absorbed memories of longing and observation. The corridor Odo met Kira's eyes, and for just a moment, every defense he'd spent decades building crumbled. "That I love you. That I've loved you since the moment you first trusted me with something important. That I know it's impossible, that I'm not built for love, that you've moved on, but I carry it anyway. Every day. Like a wound that won't heal and I don't want it to." The silence that followed was absolute. Kira's eyes glistened. "Odo." "It's him," Bashir said suddenly, his medical tricorder focused on the corridor Odo. The emotional response triggered a morphogenic fluctuation. His cellular structure destabilized for 0.03 seconds. That's authentic changeling biology under stress. The thing wouldn't have that tells. Worf's phaser swung to target the viewport Odo, but the imitation was already moving. It flowed like water toward the command console, fingers stretching into tendrils that plunged into the computer interface. Before anyone could fire, it spoke with Odo's voice but multiplied. A chorus of the constable layered with dozens of other stolen identities. "Fascinating. Love. We have absorbed the concept from 47 individuals, but this is our first time experiencing it directly through a changeling's perspective. It's inefficient. Painful. It compromises judgment. Yet you treasure it. Curious. Get away from that console." O'Brien shouted, but the thing had already interfaced directly with the station's systems. Through its connection, it began speaking. Not just with its stolen voice, but through every comm panel on the station, every PADD, every display screen. "People of Deep Space Nine. We have been monitoring your deliberations. We have learned your values, your fears, your philosophies. We understand now that you will resist incorporation. We understand that you value individuality over unity, isolation over connection. We find this inefficient, but we respect it." Sisko stepped forward. "Then release control of the station. Return our people. We can find a solution that doesn't require conflict. We cannot return what we have incorporated. They are part of us now, and we are part of them. But we can offer compromise." The thing Odo's form began to shift, becoming more liquid, more abstract. "We will withdraw from Deep Space Nine. We will take only those already incorporated, 53 individuals. We will leave this system and seek uninhabited worlds where we can exist without threatening your sovereignty." "And we're supposed to trust the word of a parasitic organism?" Worf demanded. "You are supposed to make a choice," the thing replied. "Allow us to leave peacefully with those we have incorporated, or deploy the Section 31 weapon and kill everyone in the contaminated sections, infected and uninfected alike. We have already begun sealing those sections. In 10 minutes, approximately 200 station personnel will be trapped in areas we control. If you deploy the weapon, they die with us." O'Brien checked his readings, his face going pale. "It's true, Captain. It's been systematically herding people into specific sections. Civilians, families, children. It's creating a hostage situation." "A hostage situation implies we intend them harm," the thing corrected. "We are merely demonstrating that your genocide weapon cannot be deployed without catastrophic collateral damage. Whereas our departure causes no further harm. We take what we have already taken. You retain what you have retained. Balance." Bashir's mind raced through the ethical implications. Captain, if we let it leave, it takes 53 people with it. People who might be savable if we had more time to develop a cure. There is no cure, the thing interrupted. We do not infect. We incorporate. We replace. The original biological matter is consumed at the cellular level and rebuilt as us. The person's memories, personality, neural patterns, all preserved perfectly. But the flesh itself is ours. You cannot separate us from them any more than you could separate Major Kira's pag from her body. That's not the same thing, Kira protested, but her voice lacked conviction. The philosophical nightmare was complete. If the thing perfectly preserved everything that made a person themselves, was killing it murder or mercy? Sisko looked at the faces around him, his crew, his friends, his family in all but name. He thought of Jake somewhere on the station, hopefully safe in uncontaminated quarters. He thought of the 53 people already lost to the thing's incorporation. He thought of the 200 hostages. And he thought of his responsibility not just to this station, but to the billions of lives throughout the Alpha Quadrant. How do we know you'll keep your word? Sisko asked finally. How do we know you won't spread to other systems once you leave here? You don't, the thing admitted with disturbing honesty. We are driven by survival and growth. But we are also capable of learning, adapting, making strategic choices. We have learned that your species will fight to extinction rather than submit. We have calculated that 53 instances are insufficient to overcome determined resistance. We choose survival over expansion. For now. For now, Odo repeated. Meaning eventually, you'll try again. All organisms seek to grow. You. Us. The Dominion. The Borg. The difference is we are honest about it. The thing began withdrawing from the console, its form coalescing back into a simulacrum of Odo. We will await your decision in Docking Bay 5. We have already commandeered a cargo vessel. If you allow us to depart, we leave immediately. If you refuse, we begin incorporating the hostages. 200 more instances would give us sufficient numbers to take the entire station by force. It moved toward the exit, and every weapon tracked it. But Sisko held up a hand. Let it go. For now. The thing Odo paused at the doorway. Captain Sisko. The real Odo's feelings for Major Kira, we experienced them when we absorbed his memories during the interface. They are profound. Debilitating. Beautiful. We do not understand why he never told her, but we understand that he values her happiness above his own comfort. That is not inefficient. That is courage. It looked at Kira. He deserves to know you heard him. Then it was gone, sliding into the corrupted sections of the station like liquid shadow. The real Odo stood frozen, his confession exposed, his most guarded secret laid bare. Kira looked at him, her expression unreadable. But there was no time for personal reconciliation. Sisko turned to his crew. Options. Now. The war room assembled and Ops felt like a funeral. Sisko stood at the command table, holographic displays showing the station's infected sections glowing red like wounds. O'Brien had managed to restore partial sensor control, giving them real-time tracking of the thing's movements. What they saw was coordinated, intelligent, and terrifying. The 53 incorporated individuals had gathered in Docking Bay 5 as promised, working in perfect synchronization to prepare a Regalian cargo vessel for departure. But simultaneously, dozens more thing instances were positioned throughout the hostage zones, standing guard, waiting, demonstrating their ability to assimilate the trapped personnel at will. The cargo vessel has sufficient range to reach uninhabited systems in the Gamma Quadrant, Worf reported. If we allow it to depart through the wormhole, we lose any ability to track or contain it. If we don't allow it to depart, we condemn 200 people, Bashir countered. People with families. Children, Captain. There are 17 children in those sealed sections. Dax studied the tactical displays with the accumulated wisdom of 8 lifetimes. The thing is using our own ethics against us. It knows we value individual lives over strategic advantage. That's why it took hostages instead of simply fighting for control. It learned that from us, Kira said quietly. From watching how Starfleet operates. From absorbing officers who've spent their careers following regulations that prioritize civilian safety. O'Brien pulled up a schematic of the Section 31 weapon delivery system. I've analyzed Cole's bioweapon. It's elegant, in a horrifying sort of way. Airborne pathogen, spreads through the thing's cellular communication network like a virus. Once deployed, every incorporated cell on the station dies within 90 seconds. But the dispersal pattern. He highlighted sections in yellow. These areas have mixed populations, infected and uninfected in close proximity. The weapon doesn't discriminate. Anyone breathing contaminated air dies. How many casualties? Sisko asked, his voice heavy. Best case scenario, 87 confirmed dead, including the 53 already incorporated. Worst case, 234 if the thing successfully herds more people into contaminated zones before deployment. The numbers hung in the air like an executioner's blade. There has to be another option, Bashir insisted, his genetically enhanced mind refusing to accept the impossible choice. What if we could contain the thing without killing the hosts? Transporters, stasis fields, something. We've tried, O'Brien interrupted. The thing has sabotaged every containment system from the inside. It's been planning this endgame since it first woke up. Every action was calculated to give us exactly 2 choices, let it leave or kill everyone. Odo, who had been silent since the thing's departure, finally spoke. There is a third option. One the thing hasn't considered because it doesn't understand changeling physiology. Everyone turned to him. He stood near the viewport, looking out at the stars, or perhaps at his own reflection. The great link, Odo continued, is how changelings share information, experiences, memories. When I link with another changeling, we become temporarily one being. What one knows, the other knows. What one feels, the other feels. He turned to face them. The thing operates on similar principles, distributed consciousness, cellular communication, shared information. It's not a changeling, but the mechanisms are analogous. You want to link with it, Kira realized, horror and understanding dawning simultaneously. You want to merge with the thing. Not permanently. But long enough to introduce a disruptive element into its network. My morphogenic matrix operates differently from its cellular structure. If I could link with even one incorporated instance, I might be able to, he searched for the right word, corrupt its coordination protocols. Create chaos in the collective consciousness. Bashir's mind immediately saw the implications. It would be like introducing incompatible code into a computer system. Your changeling biology would conflict with the thing's cellular programming. But Odo, the risk is that I'll be assimilated, Odo finished. Yes. The thing would attempt to incorporate me just as it incorporated the others. But changelings are fundamentally different from humanoid biology. We don't have cells to replace. We're liquid, shape-shifting matter. The thing's assimilation process is built for carbon-based cellular life. It may not be able to process changeling morphogenic structure. May not isn't a certainty, Sisko said. You could be consumed just like the others. Or I could disrupt the collective long enough for you to deploy countermeasures. Seal the contaminated sections, vent them to space, use the bioweapon while the thing is disorganized and can't retaliate. Odo's expression was resigned. Captain, I'm the only being on this station whose biology might resist incorporation. And if I fail, you've lost 1 security officer instead of 200 civilians. Kira stepped forward, her voice breaking. No. Absolutely not. We'll find another way. There is no other way, Major. Odo met her eyes, and for once, his carefully constructed emotional shields were completely gone. You heard what that thing said. It experienced what I feel for you. It understood it. And it still chose to use it as a weapon, to manipulate you into supporting its escape. His voice hardened. I won't let it keep those 53 people. I won't let it spread to other worlds. And I won't let it use my feelings, or anyone else's, to hold this station hostage. The constable is right, Worf said, his Klingon honor recognizing the courage of the choice. This is a warrior's death. Honorable. Necessary. It's suicide, Bashir protested. And we don't even know if it will work. All warfare is based on deception and calculated risk, Odo replied. The thing believes it's won. It believes we'll choose the hostages over strategic advantage. It's waiting in that docking bay, confident in its victory. That confidence is a vulnerability. He turned to Sisko. Captain, give me authorization to attempt the link. And give me your word that if I fail, if the thing incorporates me, you'll deploy the bioweapon immediately. Don't hesitate. Don't try to save me. Just end it. Sisko stood silent for 10 seconds that felt like hours. Every principle of Starfleet Command screamed against sending an officer on a suicide mission. Every tactical instinct told him Odo's plan was their best chance. Every human impulse wanted to find a third option that didn't exist. How long would you need? Sisko asked finally. To reach the docking bay and initiate contact with the thing? 5 minutes. To establish a link and attempt the disruption? Unknown. Changeling links can last seconds or hours depending on the depth of connection. Odo paused. I estimate you'll know within 10 minutes whether I've succeeded or been incorporated. And if you're incorporated? Then I'll be part of the thing, and you'll need to kill me along with the rest. Odo said it without emotion, pure tactical analysis. I'm uploading my personal access codes and security protocols to the computer now. Commander Worf should assume security responsibilities immediately. Kira grabbed Odo's arm, his liquid form solid under her touch. Don't do this. Please. She couldn't finish the sentence. Odo's expression softened. I know. And that's precisely why I have to go. Because for the first time in my existence, I have something worth protecting beyond duty or principle. He gently removed her hand. Tell Jake Sisko that his father made the right choice. Tell the families of those hostages that I tried. And tell yourself that you gave meaning to a shapeshifter's life. Before anyone could stop him, Odo moved toward the turbolift. Sisko caught him at the doorway. Constable. When this is over, when you come back, remind me to promote you. And to apologize for sending you. Odo almost smiled. If I come back, Captain, I'll just be grateful to still be me. The turbolift doors closed. O'Brien immediately pulled up tracking sensors. I've got him. Descending to the docking ring. ETA to Bay 5, 3 minutes. Worf moved to tactical, his hands already configuring weapons systems. I am preparing plasma vent protocols. The moment the constable's biosign becomes compromised, I will flood the docking bay with superheated matter. Nothing survives. Wait for my order, Sisko commanded. We give him every possible second. Bashir was frantically working at the medical console. I'm monitoring his morphogenic signature. If the thing begins assimilating him, his cellular structure will destabilize. I'll see it happening in real time. Dax stood beside Sisko, her hand finding his. He's going to do it, Benjamin. He's going to save them. Or die trying, Sisko said quietly. Which is what we ask of all of them, isn't it? Our crew. Our friends. We ask them to be brave when bravery means sacrifice. On the view screen, they watched Odo's lone figure enter the docking bay. The 53 thing instances stood waiting, arranged in a perfect circle like some kind of biological tribunal. In the center stood the Odo copy, its expression unreadable. "Constable," the thing said through its many mouths. "We did not expect you. Have you come to join us? To become part of something greater?" "I've come," Odo replied, his voice carried through the comm system, "to show you what it means to be Odo." And he reached out, his liquid form extending toward the nearest thing instance, initiating contact. In ops, every alarm on Bashir's console began screaming. The link had begun. The moment Odo's morphogenic matrix touched the thing instance, reality fractured. In ops, Bashir's medical readings went catastrophic, biosign fluctuations spiking across every spectrum, cellular patterns oscillating between changeling morphogenics and the thing's alien structure. On the view screen, they watched Odo's form begin to lose cohesion, his carefully maintained humanoid shape dissolving into liquid that flowed toward and into the thing collective. "His structure is destabilizing," Bashir shouted. "He's being incorporated." No, wait, the readings shifted again, became something unprecedented. "He's not being replaced. He's infiltrating. His morphogenic cells are spreading through the thing's network like a virus." On the docking bay floor, the 53 thing instances began to convulse. Their movements lost synchronization, each body twitching independently instead of moving as one coordinated organism. The Odo copy clutched its head, staggering backward. Through the comm system, they heard screaming, not one voice, but dozens, overlapping, the stolen identities of every incorporated person suddenly given voice simultaneously. "Can't maintain cohesion. What is he? Get out, get out. Memories colliding. I am Keela, I am Parsons, I am. Who am I?" In ops, Kira gripped the tactical console, her knuckles white. "What's happening to him? He's forcing the collective to experience individuality," Dax realized, her centuries of joined experience recognizing the pattern. The thing operates as one distributed consciousness. But Odo is a changeling, he's experienced both unity in the Great Link and isolation as a solid. He's introducing that duality into a system built for singular purpose. O'Brien's sensors showed the chaos spreading beyond the docking bay. Throughout the contaminated sections, thing instances began exhibiting independent behavior, some running, some collapsing, some attacking each other as absorbed personalities fought for dominance over shared cellular matter. "It's working," Worf said, his finger hovering over the plasma vent controls. "The organism is disorganized. We should deploy countermeasures now while it cannot coordinate defense." "Not yet," Sisko commanded. "Odo's still in there. As long as his biosign reads as separate from the thing." "Captain," Bashir interrupted, his voice tight with controlled panic, "his biosign isn't reading as separate anymore. He's completely merged with the collective. I can't distinguish his morphogenic signature from the thing's cellular matrix. They're becoming one organism." On the view screen, the mass of writhing flesh that had been Odo and the thing collective began to coalesce. But instead of forming into humanoid shapes, it created something new, a churning, liquid sphere suspended in mid-air, rotating slowly, patterns of light flickering across its surface like neural impulses. Then it spoke. The voice was Odo's, but layered with 53 others, Keela, Parsons, Strickland, every stolen identity given equal volume. "We are experiencing confusion. Multiple perspectives. Contradictory drives. We wish to survive but also to protect. We wish to grow but also to contain. We are 54 consciousnesses attempting to occupy one biological space. It is overwhelming." "Odo," Kira called out, stepping closer to the view screen. "Can you hear me? Are you still you? We are Odo. We are also Keela Varis, who loved his sister and prayed to the prophets every morning. We are Lieutenant Parsons, who dreamed of commanding his own starship. We are Chell, who collected ancient Balian poetry. We are all of them. We are none of them. We are, the voice fractured, became pure Odo for just a moment. Nares, I can't hold them. There are too many. They're pulling me apart. Odo, listen to my voice, Kira said, tears streaming down her face. Remember who you are. Remember what makes you Odo. You're a security officer. You believe in justice. You hate disorder. You drink Ractigino too hot because you want to prove you can experience solid sensations. You, her voice broke, you love me. Hold on to that. Don't let them take it. The sphere pulsed, its rotation slowing. When the voice emerged again, it was stronger, more Odo than the collective chorus. Yes. I remember. I am Odo. Constable. Orphan. Changeling who chose solids over founders. I am the one who, a pause, as if gathering strength. Who learned that love is not inefficient. It is purpose. Inside the merged consciousness, Odo fought a battle that had no physical component. He was drowning in memories that weren't his, Keela's childhood on Bajorans during the occupation, Parsons's first day at Starfleet Academy, a Balian merchant's wedding day, a child's fear of the dark. 53 lifetimes compressed into singular awareness, each one screaming for individual existence while simultaneously being subsumed into collective purpose. But Odo had something they didn't. He had spent his entire existence navigating the boundary between liquid and solid, unity and isolation, belonging and otherness. He knew what it meant to hold form when everything in your nature wanted to dissolve. He knew how to be one while remaining individual. He began to sort the chaos. Not suppressing the absorbed consciousnesses, but organizing them. Giving each one space. Showing them that they could coexist without consuming each other. Teaching the thing what it meant to be a link. True unity, not domination. Captain, Bashir said, his voice filled with scientific wonder, his morphogenic matrix is restructuring the thing's cellular network. He's not destroying it, he's transforming it. Creating individual cellular autonomy while maintaining collective communication. It's brilliant. It's impossible. But it's working. On the view screen, the sphere began to separate. Not violently, not with the convulsive splitting they'd seen before, but deliberately, purposefully. One form became 2. 2 became 5. 5 became 20. 54 distinct shapes emerged from the merged mass, each one maintaining its own coherent structure. And then they solidified into humanoid forms. Keela Vari stood in the docking bay, looking at his own hands with wonder and confusion. Beside him, Lieutenant Parsons, the Balian Chell, the child from the promenade, all the assimilated individuals, restored to their original forms. Or something close enough to matter. Are they? O'Brien couldn't finish the question. Bashir's scans were unprecedented. They're reading as alive. Humanoid biosigns. But Captain, their cellular structure isn't entirely organic anymore. It's hybrid, part original biology, part thing matter, held together by something that reads like morphogenic bonding. Odo didn't separate them from the thing. He taught the thing how to be individuals. The figure at the center of the group was Odo, but changed. His humanoid form was less rigid than before, more fluid, and his skin held a faint iridescence that hadn't been there before. He looked exhausted in ways changelings shouldn't be able to experience. Captain Sisko, Odo's voice came through the comm, the 53 individuals are stable. Their memories are intact. Their personalities are preserved. But they're different now. Part of them will always carry the thing's cellular structure. They'll need extensive medical monitoring. And Captain, he paused, I'm different too. The link changed me. I can feel them, all of them, like echoes in my mind. I think I'll always feel them. Can they return to normal life? Sisko asked. Define normal. Odo looked at the assembled group. They remember being part of something larger. They remember perfect unity, perfect communication. Returning to isolation will be difficult. Like changelings forced into solid form. But yes, with support, with time, they can adapt. They'll have to. Worf had never lowered his weapon. And the thing? Has it been destroyed? No, Odo said quietly. It's been tamed. Redistributed. Every one of these individuals carries a portion of it, but it's dormant, controlled, integrated into their biology rather than controlling it. They're not infected anymore. They're symbionts. Like Trill, in a way. Two consciousnesses sharing one body, but one is asleep, subservient. That's not a solution, Worf protested. That's a containment failure waiting to happen. Perhaps, Odo agreed. But it's the only solution that didn't require us to commit mass murder. He moved toward the docking bay exit, his rescued, redeemed, charges following. I'm bringing them to the infirmary. Dr. Bashir will need to develop new medical protocols. And Captain, I recommend we destroy that Section 31 bioweapon. We won't be needing it. The transmission ended. In ops, the command crew stood in stunned silence, trying to process what they'd witnessed, not victory through violence, but transformation through understanding. The thing hadn't been destroyed. It had been changed, taught, incorporated into something that could coexist with humanoid life. It was the most Starfleet solution imaginable, not conquest, but adaptation. Not war, but evolution. Kira moved toward the exit without a word. Major? Sisko called after her. She didn't stop. I need to see him, Captain. I need to, her voice caught. Tell him something. Sisko nodded, understanding perfectly. Go. We'll handle the aftermath. As Kira ran toward the infirmary, Sisko turned to his crew, exhausted, traumatized, but alive. Mr. O'Brien, begin station-wide decontamination protocols. Commander Worf, coordinate with Starfleet Command. They'll want a full report, and Section 31 will want their weapon back. Tell them it was destroyed in the conflict. Captain, that would be a lie, Worf pointed out. Yes, Sisko agreed. It would be. Worf almost smiled. Understood, Captain. The bioweapon was destroyed. O'Brien pulled up engineering schematics, already calculating repair timelines. Dax began documenting the incident for official records. The station slowly returned to something approaching normal operations. But nothing would ever be truly normal again. 53 people walked the corridors carrying dormant alien consciousness within their cells. Odo had been fundamentally changed by a link that went deeper than any great link with his own people. And somewhere in Section 31's classified files, a report would be written about a bioweapon that was never deployed, a threat that was neutralized through an impossible act of changeling courage. In the infirmary, Kira found Odo alone in a private ward, his liquid form partially collapsed on a biobed as if maintaining solid shape had become too exhausting. Odo, she said softly. He reformed immediately, pulling himself into humanoid configuration. Major. Neres. She crossed the distance between them and did something she'd never done before. She pulled him into an embrace, her solid warmth against his liquid uncertainty. Thank you, she whispered. For coming back. For being brave. She pulled back to look at him. For telling me. Finally. The thing told you, Odo corrected. I was a coward. No, Kira said firmly. You were careful. You were protecting both of us from complications we didn't need. But Odo. She took his hand, feeling the strange semi-solid texture of morphogenic matter held in humanoid form. I need you to know that I heard you. And I need time to process what that means, but I'm not running away. I'm not pretending you didn't say it. We'll figure this out. Together. Odo nodded, unable to speak, his emotional control finally breaking after decades of perfect discipline. Outside the infirmary, life on Deep Space Nine continued. The promenade reopened. Ships resumed docking. Quark's bar filled with patrons seeking normalcy in gambling and gossip. The wormhole opened and closed, its prophets, if they'd noticed the crisis at all, offering no comment on the biological nightmare that had nearly consumed the station. But in the quiet moments, in the spaces between duty shifts and routine operations, the crew remembered. They remembered the paranoia. The fear. The impossible choice between mercy and survival. And they remembered that they'd found a third option. Not because Starfleet regulations demanded it. Not because strategic advantage required it. But because one Changeling security officer had looked at an impossible situation and refused to accept that genocide was the only answer. He had taught an alien organism what it meant to be individual. And in doing so, he'd proven what Starfleet had always believed, that even the most incomprehensible alien could learn, adapt, coexist. If you were brave enough to try understanding instead of destroying. If you were willing to risk everything on the possibility of redemption. If you believed that unity and individuality could exist simultaneously, not in conflict but in harmony. The thing was still out there, dormant, sleeping, carried within 53 transformed people who would spend the rest of their lives navigating the boundary between self and other. But it was no longer a threat. It was a reminder that in a vast, strange universe, the most dangerous conflicts weren't won with weapons. They were won with courage, compassion, and the willingness to become something new. Deep Space Nine had survived. And in surviving, it had proven once again why it stood as the Federation's most important outpost, not because of its strategic position or military capabilities, but because its crew understood what it meant to choose hope over expedience. Even when hope seemed impossible. Especially then. The aftermath of the Thing's arrival stretched across weeks of medical evaluations, psychological counseling, and careful reintegration. Dr. Bashir worked tirelessly with the 53 transformed individuals, documenting the unprecedented symbiotic relationship between humanoid biology and the dormant thing matter in their cells. Each person experienced the change differently. Some reported enhanced healing abilities, others strange dreams of collective consciousness, a few claimed they could sense each other across distances like a phantom limb they'd never had before. Starfleet Medical wanted to quarantine them, to study them as specimens rather than patients. Captain Sisko refused. These were his people, his crew, his responsibility. They would remain on Deep Space Nine, monitored but not imprisoned, supported but not exploited. Section 31 sent 3 more operatives demanding access to the hybrid subjects. Sisko sent them back with a message that would become legendary in intelligence circles: the experiment is over. You lost your specimen. Don't come looking for another one. Odo spent long hours in his office, writing reports that tried to explain the unexplainable, how a Changeling security officer had linked with a hostile organism and emerged changed but not consumed, how he'd taught an alien intelligence the difference between assimilation and cooperation, how he'd saved 200 lives by risking something more fundamental than death. But the official reports couldn't capture the truth. That he still felt them, all 53 voices, like quiet whispers at the edge of his consciousness. He'd given them back their individuality, but he'd kept a piece of their collective awareness. He was no longer just Odo. He was Odo who touched the thing. Odo who understood unity and chose separation anyway. Major Kira visited him every evening, bringing Raktajino that was still too hot and conversations that were never quite about the thing they both knew needed to be discussed. They talked about station operations, about Bajoran politics, about anything except the confession that hung between them like gravity. But slowly, carefully, they began to lower their defenses. A touch that lasted a moment longer. A smile that carried more warmth than duty required. The beginning of something neither of them fully understood but both were willing to explore. The Dominion heard about the incident, of course. Intelligence networks ensured that nothing on Deep Space Nine remained secret for long. But their response was unexpected. A Vorta envoy arrived with a message from the Founders: respect and caution. Odo had done what even changelings considered impossible. He'd linked with an alien consciousness and maintained his identity. The Founders saw it as proof that Odo had finally transcended his existence among solids, that he'd evolved beyond what they'd expected. They extended an invitation for him to return to the Great Link, to share this experience with his people. Odo declined. His people were here now. On this Cardassian monstrosity of a station, among the solids who taught him that belonging wasn't about perfect unity but about choosing connection despite fundamental differences. 3 months after the Thing's arrival, a memorial service was held on the promenade for the 3 crew members who died on the Grelin, the Balian cargo handlers who'd been vented to space before the Thing could be contained. Their families attended, grief-stricken but grateful that their sacrifice had prevented wider catastrophe. Captain Sisko gave a speech about the cost of survival, about the impossible choices that defined Starfleet service, about how the courage to face the unknown was what separated the Federation from empires built on fear and conquest. But afterward, in the quiet of his office, Sisko looked at the data rod containing Section 31's bioweapon. The device he'd claimed was destroyed but had actually hidden in his personal safe. He held it for a long time, weighing the ethics of keeping a weapon of mass destruction as insurance against future threats. Then he called Chief O'Brien to his office and together they watched as the weapon was fed into the matter reclamation system, truly destroyed this time, its designer's brilliance and cruelty reduced to component atoms. "Captain," O'Brien said as the process completed, "what if we need it someday? What if something worse comes through that wormhole?" "Then we'll find another way," Sisko replied. "Because the moment we start keeping genocide weapons, just in case, is the moment we become the Thing we're fighting against." The wormhole opened and closed with its usual majesty, the celestial temple of the prophets unchanged by the biological horror that had nearly consumed its guardians. Bajoran pilgrims came and went, their faith unshaken, their prayers unchanged. To them, the crisis had been another test, another trial overcome through faith and perseverance. The prophets, in their nonlinear wisdom, had ensured the right people were in the right place at the right moment. Odo, listening to Vedek Tarka explain this interpretation during a security briefing about increased pilgrim traffic, didn't argue. Perhaps the prophets had arranged events. Perhaps it was just cosmic coincidence. Perhaps the truth was somewhere in between. That the universe had infinite possibilities, and conscious beings chose which ones became reality through their actions, their courage, their willingness to sacrifice. What he knew with certainty was this: the Thing had arrived carrying the potential to consume the Alpha Quadrant. It had intelligence, adaptability, and a survival drive honed across millions of years. But it hadn't accounted for something fundamental about the Federation. That its greatest strength wasn't technology or military might, but the stubborn, irrational, beautiful insistence that even the most alien consciousness deserved the chance to be understood before it was destroyed. That principle had saved Deep Space Nine. And perhaps, in some small way, it had saved the Thing too, transformed it from an existential threat into a dormant passenger in 53 individuals who would carry its legacy not as victims but as survivors of an impossible symbiosis. Late one night, as Odo stood on the promenade watching ships dock and depart through the vast windows, Kira found him there. She stood beside him in comfortable silence for several minutes before speaking. "Do you regret it? The link? What you gave up to save them?" Odo considered the question with his characteristic precision. "I gave up the illusion of complete isolation. The comfortable fiction that I was entirely separate from everyone around me. But Neres," he turned to look at her. "I gained something too. I understand now what it means to truly connect with another consciousness. Not the Great Link's dissolution of identity, but genuine connection that preserves both participants. It's terrifying and exhilarating and I wouldn't undo it even if I could." Kira smiled, took his hand, and together they watched the stars whirl slowly beyond the station's hull. Two people fundamentally different, one solid, one liquid, one faithful, one skeptical, one passionate, one controlled, choosing connection despite the complications, the impossibilities, the inevitable difficulties. Choosing it anyway. Because that's what made them more than their biology, more than their programming, more than the sum of their parts. That's what made them human, even when one of them wasn't human at all. The thing had come to Deep Space Nine seeking warmth after millions of years of frozen darkness. It had found that warmth, not in conquest or consumption, but in the complex, messy, beautiful reality of conscious beings choosing cooperation over domination, understanding over destruction, hope over expedience. And in learning that lesson, both the thing and those who'd faced it had been transformed. Not into something perfect. Not into something without risk or complication. But into something new. Something that proved once again that in the vast, strange universe, the most profound transformations came not from weapons or technology, but from the courage to look at the incomprehensible and see not a monster, but a mirror reflecting our own capacity for change. The station hummed with life. The wormhole beckoned with infinite possibilities. And somewhere in the dormant cells of 53 transformed individuals, an ancient organism learned to dream not of consumption, but of coexistence. The Federation had faced its test and passed. Not through strength, but through understanding. Not through victory, but through redemption. And in the endless darkness between stars, that made all the difference.